Well, they do say when you fall off the bike, you should get back on the horse or something like that, to mix a metaphor or two. So we're reluctantly doing the podcast this morning while the wounds from Saturday night are still raw. But yeah, sometimes you've just got to face it and cop the consequences. This is the Titus and Sergio Variety Hour podcast. I'm Sergio Paradise, and here he is, the man who single-handedly started the Prince Philip is dead rumour on the weekend. It's Titus O'Reilly.
Oh, I didn't even hear that rumour.
Didn't you hear that? It swept the internet Saturday night that Prince Philip was dead.
That's happened before.
Yeah, and apparently the Queen wasn't too happy about it.
Right.
Not the fact that the rumour started, the fact that he wasn't dead.
Well, I got to say, like, to me, my theory is he's been dead for years.
Yeah, exactly.
His soul has.
It's Weekend at Bernie's kind of style every time they get him out.
I was too distraught. We'll get into...
We'll get to that.
Because, look, let's be honest, people. If Serge and I pulled a podcast every time Melbourne disappointed us...
Yeah, there'd be no podcast.
We would never have started a podcast.
Yeah.
But, Serge, this is a weird one. We don't usually do this, but I read a story on the weekend that someone sent me, and it's not sport.
Right.
But it's so crazy. I don't know. It's when I read it, you might wonder why I'm telling you this, but it made me think of you.
Okay.
But it made me laugh.
That concerns me.
It made me laugh so much. I had to go in. Now it's a Spanish, based in Spain, in Valencia.
Right.
So there was a Spanish public servant. His name is Carles Rico, and he was on an $80,000 salary as an archive director in the provincial government there.
Right.
Now, they found out, and this has been a huge story over there, that he would show up to the office every morning at 7:30 a.m.
Right.
early.
Good early start.
Well, I think they have don't they have sort of siesta over there?
Right.
So
Yeah,
they start early, but then go.
Yeah.
He then would clock in using the fingerprint scanner.
Yeah.
That they had to show up, that people show up. And then he'd head home, only returning to the office at 3:30 to clock out. Now, he did this for 10 years.
Oh, yeah.
Right?
I'm loving Carlos at the minute.
10 years before colleagues began to raise suspicions. 10 years. He got away with this.
Oh, yeah. They let you go in Spain. No.
Now, he was then finally sacked, and he denied that he'd done anything wrong. He said, I only have done what they asked me to do. First, he said that he would go home and just work from home.
Right.
So he argues he was working. And he said, no one can show me a photograph in which I'm in a cafeteria. I'm a man of action. He said he did all the document work and everything at home. Now, they tried to prosecute him, the authorities, but they found that there doesn't actually constitute a crime what he did. So they weren't able to, even though they did ban him in an administrative tribunal from holding a public post for 9 years for flagrant neglect of the essential duties inherent to the work post. Now, they found no evidence that he actually did any of the work he claimed, and he'd not even logged into the corporate network since 2012. It also said that he claimed that he'd not shown up because there was an office relocation and he didn't get a desk in the new office relocation. That was found not to be true. He also said that he was assigned an external project to work on, which no one could find any evidence of him either doing or anyone assigning it to him. So he did all this stuff. Now, this is where it kind of gets a bit interesting. So he hasn't shown up to work for 10 years, basically, except in the morning to clock on.
So just confirm, he turns up 7:30 in the morning, uses the high technology fingerprint to get into the building.
To get in, and comes back at 3:30 to clock out.
And then takes off home, comes back at 3:30 and clocks off again.
Yeah.
Right. And
now, there's no evidence of work. Now, this is where the story really escalates. Because it's already kind of interesting.
Yeah.
Guy gets away with not working for 10 years.
Yeah.
We should also add that when they tried to punish him, the tribunal, despite banning him from working in a government post for 9 years, they also were highly critical of his employers for not noticing that he hadn't been there for 10 years.
Workmates,
Everyone.
Yeah.
Like, he got away with it for 10 years, then who knew? So then the story, I thought that was the end of the story. Then I get to the last couple of paragraphs, and you tell me, is this the best escalation of a story that you've ever heard? So it said, he has been busy in other ways, however, during these 10 years. In his free time, he was making a name for himself as an erotic comic book artist and creator of the popular character Fallarella, a busty superhero who hurls flaming Valencia oranges at her enemies.
He is from Valencia, the home of the orange.
So I thought, well, this story has gotten a bit more interesting. So then listen to this.
Yeah.
It also emerged that he'd been running a male brothel out of his house since 2005. And at one point he threatened to reveal the identity of his clients, warning there may be cameras inside and graphic information could compromise many politicians. So that's part of why they reckon it all got dropped. Now, in a high-profile campaign to clear his name, he attempted to use a council venue for an art exhibition entitled Love from Valencia, the works of a man who never worked, before the council found out about it and shut it down. So that escalates, doesn't it?
Oh, does it ever? That's a movie. I mean, I can see Nicolas Cage playing Carlos in that. Or if Carlos was to move out here, they would make him head of AFL Tasmania. He could clock in for 9 years. Nobody would know the difference.
Right. So anyway, I don't know why that made me think of you.
Oh yeah. Oh no, I admire Carlos for the sheer. You just got to say, for the sheer balls of the guy to do that for 9 years,
it's
but at the
bizarre.
same time running a male prostitute ring from his apartment. He's creating a comic book with Valencia oranges with
flammable Valencia oranges.
There you go.
You don't get stories like that often.
No.
Now, Serge, we should turn to... Oh, I should mention in 2 weeks I'm going to be down in Tasmania, the 4th of August, Saturday night. So if you're interested in coming down and seeing me, I haven't been to Tassie before.
No.
And I said the other...
Or just
I've never
tour?
been to Tassie, and
Right.
I've never been on tour. And as I've done a Jeff Kennett and said, either get behind me or I'll leave. But it's almost sold out.
I'll take my pink and brown jumpers and go home.
That's almost sold out, that show. So if you do want to come get on, I'll put a link in the show notes. Now, Serge, let's turn to Saturday night, which, like many Saturday nights for you and I, ended badly.
Yeah,
this time in a football sense.
Yeah.
Were you watching it live?
I watched it live, and for the most part, I was reasonably happy with the outcome and the way Melbourne were playing. And even at three-quarter time, I thought, Geelong will come at them in this last quarter. There's no question. They're playing at home. That's what they do.
Yeah.
That's what they do. But then we got the first goal. I thought, 29 points, that should be enough. That should be enough. If they start creeping too close, we'll slow it down, whatever. We should be right.
Yeah.
But, of course, it was Melbourne.
Well, I thought, one, I'd say it was a cracking game.
It was.
Like
So
if
it was some good
you
football play.
if you are just a neutral, if you're a Geelong supporter, it was one of the most fun nights you probably had in a long time. If you're a football supporter, I mean, all this stuff about football being ruined.
Yeah.
Since they've started talking about that, it's been way, way better in the last few weeks. But that was as an exciting game as you're ever going to watch.
No question.
With lots of great individual performances. Clayton Oliver was amazing. Hawkins was amazing. I thought Tom McDonald was great. Like, there's lots of great moments in the game too. So you have all that. I just thought, look, Geelong were just better in the midfield in that last quarter. They had an extra gear.
They got 8-1 centre clearances.
Yeah, they just had an extra gear that Melbourne didn't have yet. Like, Melbourne are a lot... I wasn't as despondent. Like, I was shattered on the night and all that sort of stuff. I was
really annoyed. I thought that was a choke, and they showed that they're still not necessarily ready for the big stage, because they should have closed that out with a minute to go.
The difference is, in the past when Melbourne got beaten, go back 5 years ago, I knew that we had no growth in the team.
Yeah.
Now I look at it and go, this club off the field and on the field is set up to have success for the longer term.
Few years, yeah.
And Richmond showed that. What I think Richmond learnt after some horrible years with this team that they've got, and you watch them now, what's Richmond's strength? For 4 quarters, they keep their structure.
Yeah.
Which I don't think people get how much discipline and how hard and concentration that requires from a team. Like
that is true. They do maintain their structure.
I've watched them live about 5 times this year, Richmond play. And when you see them live and the way they just line up and structure themselves and everyone knows where to be and they all play their roles, I don't think Melbourne are quite there yet. I'm going to Richmond Collingwood
this week, so I haven't seen the Tigers play
watch
live
them. They're amazing.
Year, so I will watch it.
And I think that's what Melbourne haven't yet learnt. I think they, in that 4th quarter, they got panicked and then they just were tired and they just, you saw it. And then there were just some... one off, Petrarca kicked that torp when he could have just chipped it around. There was a bunch of things where you go, They could have still pulled
Two
it
stupid
out.
umpiring decisions. Not that necessarily the decisions were poor, but the rules were bad.
No, well, so you're talking about like there was the nominated ruck bit.
That was a shocker.
And then there was the harms one where
Yeah.
it was inside the protective zone. Now, I'd say this about both of them. Did that make the difference to the win? Like, no, because they are the rules, even if they're not always applied properly. My problem with both of those, and I have that problem if Melbourne weren't playing. So this is where, I didn't want to I don't want to come across as sour grapes but I've raged against these two rules for ages.
Yeah.
They're the stupidest rules that Mark Evans created.
Yeah.
When no one needed them and never have. And while I thought they cost Melbourne, they were technically the right calls.
Yeah.
But I mean, what's Harms is an example. And Harms is not alone, but Geelong's had this happen to them too. Yeah. Every club's had this happen to them. A player is what they meant to do, like disappear into thin air. Like if you set a rule up
and you're standing next to him, what are you supposed to do?
If you create a rule that defies physics for people to avoid it, the rule's terrible.
Yeah.
The ruck nomination rule is so complicated. You need a working with ruckman check just to even be able to go to a ruck contest these days. Like it's a TAFE course.
It's under nines. They do it in under nines.
Yeah.
And that
but
is...
the under nines doesn't have a crowd at full voice. Now, Dangerfield was smart. He knew he'd nominated. Yeah. So he put his arm and he did. So he was smart. So I don't begrudge actually Geelong at all those goals because they are the rules. But it's disappointing when you see them end up what you think are just shocking rules.
Yeah. And isn't it so typical of the AFL that they're talking about, they're softening up everyone to say, we're going to bring in some rule changes in 2019 that could fundamentally change the game as it's been played for 150 years. Yeah. Right? But we won't get rid of these two really stupid ones.
I think they're going to have to get rid of the ruck nomination rule.
They have to. And
you just ban a third man up and you say, we don't care who are the two that go up, but the team that sends a third man in, if they don't communicate properly amongst themselves of who's going to be the ruckman, gets penalised. How hard's that?
Again,
it's problem
it
solved.
Worked forever. It's time for a ball up. The umpire walks in.
You just don't have to nominate.
He doesn't care whether you're ready or not. The ball's going up, boys. Two of you go up for it.
That's right.
Simple.
And if someone doesn't hear properly and goes in as the third man up, then that's a free kick against them. Yeah. Easy. It's easier to interpret.
And again, with the protected zone, it's simple. If a player's trying to get out, or if a player runs through the mark or stops the player with the ball from playing on or doing what he wants to do, fine, penalise him. But if he just happens to be standing next to the bloke when he marks it,
and he's running away or is trying to get away. Like, it's about intent.
Play on. Yeah.
So I just think those rules were terrible, but I don't think they were look, you can argue they were the difference, but they are the rules. Yeah. So you can't argue, just because they're bad rules, you can't say, well, Melbourne should have won. I don't think Melbourne should have won. I think they had their chances. Even beyond
I think
that,
they should have won. When you're 29 points in front in last quarter.
Oh, no, I'm not saying they should have, but I'm not saying it's the umpires that...
No, the umpires, they didn't get those decisions wrong. They're just, as we said, stupid
umpires are like, you telling me before we went on air how you were at the supermarket and a woman was yelling at the checkout operator, who was like a 15-year-old woman, and was yelling at them about plastic bags. Yeah. And you're like, well, that person on the checkout didn't come up with this rule.
Exactly. I felt
and also
this girl,
you know.
This girl, she's probably...
And that's what I feel like the umps. The umps have been like given all these terrible rules to enforce.
Yeah.
And then...
They've got to, throw their hands up. So, look,
My problem with the protected zone is as often they do seem to employ common sense, and someone does run through or out, and they don't. So it's the consistent. Like, if every single time they called it, it would be stupid, but at least it would make sense. The problem is, it seems like they just cherry pick certain moments, and the penalty is so harsh too. Like, 50 metres. I mean, that was a goal to Geelong.
I always seem to cherry pick, as you say, when the ball is on a wing or just beyond the wing, which means a 50-metre automatically brings his bloke
pretty
within
close
30 metres of goal,
The other thing that was kind of interesting is there was a big, terrible in the way, a big brawl at Cardinia Park. There was a guy glassed at Cardinia Park earlier in the year.
That was a Richmond game, wasn't it?
That was in a corporate area.
Yeah.
We've had brawls at the...
There's been a fair bit of it this year.
I've got two theories. I got a theory on this, and I don't know if it's true. It's a theory. these things always happen, but now with mobile phones, they get captured.
Yeah.
So it used to be if there was a fight, someone says, "Oh, there was a fight at the footy," and you'd hear this or see it every now and then. But there was no footage of it, so none of the media got onto it.
You'd see it in the distance, and then you'd see security and blokes get kicked.
And I remember once in the car back seeing a couple of drunk guys punching on in a very bad attempt at it was. But you kind of see those things now. It seems like, so I don't know, because they don't release stats about it. You don't know if it's gone up or down, or we're just seeing it now.
Champion Data need to get on board here.
But it seemed like a few of the... Now, it was fun. I've seen a bit of the footage, and I've also seen a lot of the commentary. A lot of Geelong players saying it was a bunch of drunk Melbourne players. A lot of Melbourne players say it was... I don't know who started or what it was, but it was pretty bad. It was a pretty bad look.
Oh, it was a bad look. And it got me wondering, I think, you can't barrack for either side here, because it's Geelong-Melbourne. You're looking at two sets of old money. You've got your Western District graziers who got their money through sheep and grazing versus your old money Collins Street banker lawyer types who got it through theft and exploitation. Who do you barrack for?
You're not a fan of either of them.
You're not a fan of either of your old school.
The other thing that I found interesting was a journalist asked one of the, I think it was the head of Gardenia Park, said, "Oh, will you start separating fans?"
Yeah,
and the guy said, "Look, we'll look at everything." He wasn't like committing to it, but then it was written up like they're considering it, and I didn't think he was actually considering it.
They can't.
I think that would be the worst thing you can do, because there's a few idiots, right? But because everyone is together, I think it actually negates a lot of the negative stuff.
I couldn't agree more. As soon as you separate them, it becomes
us against them.
It becomes it's the English versus the Scottish. It's
And the best thing about AFL is, and this is 99.9% of fans.
Yeah.
And it's the same on Twitter. Like, there's always the idiots, but the majority of people are doing light-hearted banter that is often very funny, or they're just going and watching and not bothering anyone. So, the overreaction. But I'd love the AFL to say, look, we have this many incidents of violence, and it's going up or it's going down.
Yeah. You're not going to get those stats. And they're talking about, I mean, I heard Gillan McLaughlin say on radio this morning. He said, look, you can't be banning grog. You can't be segregating the fans. He said the bottom line is every idiot has to be held accountable for their actions, which is fair enough.
Yeah.
And whether it's banning, I just wonder about the practicalities of banning individual supporters. I mean, how does that work? You can always get into the footy if you've got a valid ticket. Doesn't matter what your name or face is. You can always get in. So I don't know how that works. But sure, I'd be the first one to say, you idiots, hey, you're not going to the footy anymore. You're going to go watch the footy, you watch it at home on telly.
Yeah,
you get as pissed as you like there and punch your family if you want. But
surely if you could, I mean, you could, they have massive fines if you run onto the...
Yeah, it's $7,000 to run onto the field.
So surely they could up the fines.
Well, that's right. As soon as it shouldn't be too hard to identify these blokes in the Geelong-Melbourne blue. But as soon as you say to this guy, hey, mate, that's just cost you,
$7,000 or something, $8,000
for throwing that punch. Mate, it cost you $9,000 for putting the boots in. I guarantee, though, that's the last time they'll be swinging.
Well, Collingwood fans who've been in a few this year would stop, but Melbourne fans, that's just an hour's salary.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. I mean, it depends whether that is a deterrent.
Mark Hayward wrote in, is the cultured, sophisticated Saturday night scene in Geelong now dead forever thanks to drunken, violent Melbourne supporters?
The cultured, sophisticated Saturday night scene in Geelong. Can I tell you, Mark, one of my mates used to own 2 nightclubs in Geelong.
Right.
And the cultured, sophisticated Saturday night scene has never existed.
What a surprise that you're familiar with the nightclubs and bars of Geelong.
The Lyric nightclub, he used to have these bouncers there.
Yeah.
Whose job, if you tried to leave, they'd throw you back in. True. One night, you'd never pay for a drink there. You asked Dermot Brereton this, you would never pay for a drink.
Yeah.
And then if you tried to sneak out at 2 a.m, the bouncers would throw you back in.
Really?
Yeah, that a number of times. You had to stay until dawn.
Really? It was that? Chris Earl wrote in, after the brawl between Melbourne and Geelong fans on Saturday, do you think it's time that they consider serving mid-strength Grange?
Well, that's a fair point. Can you get mid-strength Grange? No. Grange is Grange.
Grange is a good quaffing wine. I wouldn't serve it to guests. Phil Brow wrote in.
You're the only bloke I know who buys Grange by the cask.
He buys it to cook with. Philip Brow wrote in, is the increase of violence at AFL due to more people having a basketball background?
I like that.
I think it's true.
He's linking that to another story.
That's right. Jamie Porter wrote, when he was growing up in Ireland, do you think Zach Tui was dreaming of kicking a winning goal after the Sirens against the Demons? I tell you what, I would have liked Taylor Walker to have squared Zach Tui up a bit more the week before.
Yeah, would have been handy.
God. That was good. Damien Rufus Nolan. What was more head-scratching for you as a Melbourne supporter, the ruck infringement free kick and the 50-metre penalty that both resulted in Geelong goals, or the Demons managed to limbo under your already low expectations and lose the game?
So Damien sort of covered all bases there, really.
I was never confident we were going to win. Even when we were 29 points up, at no point was I confident on Saturday night.
I was reasonably confident at that point because I thought we have developed as a side, and if we're 5 goals in front in the last quarter, we should be able to shut this out. Even if they come at us and kick the next 3, which they did, obviously.
I would have liked to have seen Hibbert and Lever. They were both in the side. What a difference that would have made.
If Hibbert and Lever had played, I think it's safe to say Hawkins wouldn't have kicked 7.
That hurt the most, actually. Hawkins played.
He was on fire.
Darley wrote in, should Simon Goodwin change his name to Simon Honourable Loss? A bit sick of honourable losses.
I'm a bit sick of Simon Goodwin taking it all so calmly.
I have no problem with that. Yeah, I actually think Goodwin, because remember Neil, he would just break down and be angry and all. I actually think Melbourne, I just think it's going to click for Melbourne at some point.
Yeah.
Like it did for Richmond. I think it will. And the last thing you need is someone who's carrying on and yelling and, anyway, we'll see. I could be completely wrong.
I'm a bit old-fashioned in that way. I like a coach to give a good spray now and then.
You can't do it these days, though. They all leave.
Yeah.
They do, though. It's not...
Well, look at Gold Coast. Rodney Eade gives the best sprays.
And everyone hated him. And then when he joined Baldwin Tigers, a couple of players who played for him on the Gold Coast left straight away, even though they had contracts. You can't do it anymore, as much as people would like to. Jeremy Wolfhart wrote in, since us Ports fans like Melbourne are used to anguish and disappointment, should we form a super team and fulfil our maximum distress potential?
Melbourne and Port merging. Well we might win a fight if we had some more Port supporters.
I was also going to add, if you combine Port, Melbourne, and Fremantle, you'd get a club that would just make people so sad. And just upset people so much.
But if there ever was a public brawl full of Port Melbourne and Freo supporters,
Port Adelaide and Freo supporters,
and Port Adelaide supporters, we would win the blue, and it would allow the Melbourne supporters to do what they do best, which was to stand back and just let the others go for it,
or to offer legal services afterwards. The medical and the doctors and lawyers could step forward. God, I do like the idea of combining a super team of disappointment, of breaking people's hearts.
And moving them to Tasmania.
Because you would have once had Richmond in there, but they've left us. The Bulldogs briefly left, but they look like they want to come back to being a disappointing side. Marcus Hinton wrote in, do Melbourne supporters get a safe word with their membership packs? I wish.
Yeah, and it should be Journey. That should be your safe word.
Safe words are for wimps. Yeah. Safe words, they're for wimps. You don't need one. Anyway, it was a brutal... in all honesty, I sound happier now than I was and more positive. I am positive. I do think this is a good side. I do think they're going to get better. So I'm not as worried. But on the night, I went to bed pretty... just gutted.
Oh, yeah.
I just felt,
slamming my fist on the coffee table and into the couch. And then, think, what do I do now?
Why does it still hurt?
Eh?
Why does it still hurt?
And you could say this about any football supporters. Why do we care that much?
I know. And why do we keep doing it to ourselves? Why
do we
There's
care?
some teams that make sense that you keep doing it to yourself.
Yeah.
Because you have joyous moments. But, gee. Another game that was kind of shocking is... Oh, do you know the worst?
What's that?
Straight after the loss, someone I know texted me and they were being nice.
Oh,
this is
right.
the worst bit.
Oh.
They go, this isn't a person that does,
Yeah.
I got a lot of negative messages from people giving me,
yeah.
but they said, feel for you, that was a really tough line. I go, at least your tips are right. Because I tipped Geelong. And you go, that is cold comfort right now.
Don't patronise me,
The other one, the reason I said that is the tip I got wrong, and I think every person in the world got this wrong, is the Suns beat the Swans at the SCG.
You'd have been a brave man to tip this one in advance.
Well, weren't the Suns like 11 losses in a row?
Yeah.
And no Tom Lynch.
They were 5 goals down as well.
Yeah, so the amazing thing is Sydney scored 6 goals in the first quarter.
Yeah.
And I flicked I was watching, what was the other game on at that time? Was it the Collingwood game? I can't remember. Yeah, Collingwood North. Yeah. So I was flicking around between a few games and I thought, well, this is boring. The Suns have down.
They've turned it up
yeah,
and it's over.
Sydney after quarter time, so they scored 6 in the first half. They scored 2 points, 2 goals for the rest of the game.
Yeah.
It's unbelievable.
Yeah. And I read that the odds for the Suns at quarter time went out to 150 to 1, and some bloke had a lazy 50 on it.
Right,
at 150 to 1. There's a quick $7,500 straight in the kick.
That's amazing. So it looked. Look, it was incredibly weird.
What's wrong
game.
with the Swans?
What I love is there's 2 reasons people give about the Swans, or say after every Swans win or loss, right? And sort of neither of them can be true. They say after a win, how do the Swans keep finding all this young talent? Yeah. They're amazing.
All these good young players.
All these, Ronke and, all these, and they go, they're amazing. What an amazing team. Then whenever they lose, they go, it's because Buddy Franklin takes up too much of the salary cap and they don't have any,
they pay him too much,
they don't have any new talent. Yeah. And you go, well, hang on, they can't both be true.
Have both, yeah.
So I don't know, you could say that they're actually an incredibly young team, and you could say that young teams tend to be fairly up and down.
Expecting at 3/4 time, surely the Swans will come here and they'll pinch it,
And they could have. That was awesome. They were in touch.
And the Suns, for a shocking season they've had, they've still got enough talent on the paddock to be competitive if they play well.
Well, and the other side's not switched on, which was very obvious.
They were having a good day. But they really wanted it that last quarter.
I was surprised at how disinterested
and the Swans
appeared.
Care. And even Stephen May, after the game, he said even when we were 13 points in front with only 5 minutes to go, he said, only then it dawned on me, we might actually win this game, He still didn't quite believe it.
Because it was like the sort of one where you're watching going, the Swans are, Buddy's going to suddenly kick 3 goals in in 2 minutes or something.
And the game be over,
The Swans just, I wonder if the games, it's hard to win if you can't kick a score. Yeah. Ross Lyons found that out.
Yeah,
I don't know whether Longmire is,
that
you can only be too defensive.
Swans plan of kicking 75 to 80 points a game and making sure that the other team kicks less, I'm not sure that's going to work forever, or especially these days. When your better teams, your Richmond, Melbourne, when they're playing well, but these guys are all kicking 110 a week.
Well, Collingwood
doing a perfect example.
They've gotten better as they've kicked more. So I think you kind of got to do a bit of both. You've got to be able to break teams.
Too many more games of footy.
Yeah. Interestingly, Ross Lyon this week, speaking of Ross Lyon, he came out and said that he's no longer going to discuss players' futures in public after he labelled sensational headlines surrounding Daniel Pearce and Michael Johnson earlier this month, where he announced that they were both out of contract and that they weren't going to be. He said it's pretty obvious they're going to exit, right? That they're not going to think. So he came out this week and he was asked about Cameron Sutcliffe, who's another out of contract player. Yeah. What's going to happen with him? And he said, I'm not here to talk about people's futures. It's not really how we should operate. Clearly, there was a discussion about veterans last week. That was fine. There were some sensational headlines to come out of that, but that's okay. He said he will no longer discuss players' futures in public after what he labelled as sensational headlines, and said, I'm not here to talk about it. He just came out and just basically said that he just thought it was way out of line. People said.
He created the sensational headlines.
And I'm like, so I went back and looked and tried to find sensational headlines, right?
Oh, right. Yeah, that's a good point.
I couldn't find
Not
anything. Well, I found one saying, that they were delisting, and there was a few little bits about
2 dockers on the way out.
Yeah, but there was a few questions of, was it a good time to announce it just ahead of a game?
Yeah.
So that was probably the most you would say.
Yeah.
So it was more questioning whether it was a good idea, but I couldn't find anything where I went, that's sensational. Like, he didn't say, because of a fallout or...
Yeah.
It's such an overreaction by him. Like, it's like, he tells the media that 2 players have been delisted. They report what he says.
Exactly, that's what I'm saying. Yeah.
Pretty much straight.
Pretty much
from
verbatim,
what someone can send me.
If
someone's got the article that he's complaining about, send it to me, because I couldn't find it.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at it going, well, what do you expect, mate? Like...
Yeah.
This is one of the rare times I would say the media haven't gone off tap on off on a tangent.
You've just already said you've got 2 holes in your list for next year. These 2 blokes aren't going to have their contract.
And if he's already told those 2 players, and you assume the team,
it's not like those 2 players found out.
Or the team
media.
found out. I mean, if that's the case, that's his own fault again. Because
poor management.
He's a grumpy bastard.
Oh yeah.
He has not had a good. He has not had a good year.
Oh no.
Hanging on for dear life.
We've had sensational headlines.
The basketball suspensions came in after the Philippines.
I was just wondering about this. I was
Australia.
thinking last week, geez, they're taking their time making their
Thursday
mind up
afternoon. So Danny and I were talking about this just before they came out, and I'd be fair to say that the suspensions are bizarre. For people that don't know, this was between, most people would, Australia and the Philippines in a World Cup qualifier. Had an enormous brawl, all-in brawl. Involved coaches from the Philippines getting involved quite actively.
Officials from the Philippines.
And it also had father of one of the players from the Philippines came in with a chair.
Yeah.
So it was a real... It was a real brawl.
It was a real wing-ding.
Now, this I thought that these sanctions and the suspensions and various things that came in made the AFL tribunal or match review panel look sensible. That's how crazy they are. So bad are they that a few of the Australian players are considering legal options following these findings. So the FIBA, the governing body of international basketball, I would say have just handed in the weakest thing. So one, the spectator who came in with a chair has had no punishment. And they say, well, we don't have the power to punish them.
Because he's a spectator.
Now,
maybe they should separate the spectators in future.
Well, you got to think, they must have some ability to put the pressure then on the Philippines to punish them.
Well, you'd think. I mean,
how's that? I'll ban them from all... it's weird that they just go, oh, well, that's it.
Can you imagine if a spectator at the footy picked up a chair, walked down the aisle to the fence and bashed a player with it who was lining up for goal over the boundary line? Yeah.
How they haven't been charged for assault or something. Now, the other thing is that the biggest... there's a couple of really weird things. One, I would say that you found that Chris Goulding was, who plays for the Melbourne United. He basically was on the ground, motionless, while about 7 blokes pummeled him. Yeah, he got suspended for a week for that. For lying motionless.
Yeah,
on the ground.
Diving.
Does that make sense to you?
That was a penalty. He dived.
You think it was staging?
He was staging. Yeah.
I don't get that one at all. What's going on there? I don't even. They were saying that it was to do with earlier niggle going on.
Yeah, but even FIBA and the Philippines themselves said it was none of this racist.
No, so no one. The racist thing's been proven to pretty much comprehensively to be nonsense.
So it was purely just idiotic behaviour by the Philippines players and officials and coaches, and they pretty much got off scot-free. My question is, I think the heaviest sanction was 5 matches.
I think there was one that was 6 for the official that ran.
Is that 5 club matches?
No, I think it was FIBA sanctioned ones. They said so. But the thing there is, half of these ones where Nathan Sobey was the guy who got clocked a few times by it was a 5. You're right. It was a 5 one. He entered the court. This was Gio Jalan, who received a 5-game suspension despite entering the court and punching Sobey.
Yeah.
Just a pure... How that isn't just a criminal charge of assault. Like if you did that off the basketball court, you'd be going to court. He might still be because they're talking about but just giving him 5-game suspension is so ridiculous.
Yeah, it's absurd.
Like it's unbelievable to me that happened. Some of the other ones were all. I mean, some of the other bans, especially towards the Philippines, were just so lightweight. It really is unbelievable.
Yeah. And what's happened there is, I mean, is FIBA, are they as corrupt as FIFA? I mean...
Well, I don't know. I mean, I assume they are.
From the Philippines, you know?
No, I think they're just... It's amazing how weak these bodies are, you know? Like... Oh, it's like... Because that was a disgrace for the game.
I think we might even mention Dave Warner a bit later in the podcast, but you look at that, even
compared to ball tampering...
Yeah, but they're still the lamest sanctions ever given for blokes who have been banned for 12 months.
Yeah.
And now they're playing all around the world, you know.
Yeah, but you compare what they did compared to what some of these guys did. I mean, you know, so it'll be interesting to see if this still plays out because there was talk of potentially appealing against this, Australia appealing against it. The problem is FIBA have set it up so that if you appeal, you have to pay a lot of thousands of dollars to even have the appeal heard. And FIBA are known for just not overturning anything anyway. Yeah. So it's like just a waste of your money. So, like, I think they've lost a lot of respect in doing this. I think people just look at this and go, this is weak. And I'm not saying some of the Australians deserve suspensions, and they got suspensions.
Yeah, or Thon Maker got a few weeks.
Thon got some, and, you know, so there was a few there, but you kind of look at it and go, but to me, you're an official or, you know, entering the court unrelated to proceedings. You're going to get, and doing what they did. Yeah. You know, it's pretty amazing.
Yeah, what I heard from somebody, I got a mate who does a fair bit of work at Melbourne, United.
Yeah.
And he reckons Goulding is savage about this, and he's lawyered up. Don't worry about that.
Oh, yeah, well, they should. Yeah. I mean, you know, the other one, the assistant coach, Joseph Uchicho, he came out and got a 3-month ban despite he left the bench and viciously attacked Chris Goulding as he's lying motionless on the ground. Yeah. Like, a lot of it was weak as. The Australians were not completely... that elbow at the start that kicked a lot of it off.
Elbow by kick it. I mean, he should get suspended for that, no doubt.
Yeah, I think, if anything, his suspension was light in a way because that was a pretty... I know he was responding, but, you know, like it was way overreaction.
Given how soft these suspensions are, it's a shame now that Luke Longley didn't come out swinging and that the Australians didn't jump off the bench and make it a real fair dinkum fight. Wouldn't have happened at Cardinia Park.
Now, are you... That's right. Are you one of these people that stay up and watch the Tour de France?
Can't say I am.
The thing I find about the Tour de France is the people that stay up and watch it, they seem to do it, because I don't do it.
No.
I'm not a... Cycling, once we learned about all the doping and the motors in the bikes.
Motors in the bikes.
It's the biggest cheating sport there is.
That took it up 3 notches for me, cycling.
I know people love it, but...
The sheer engineering genius to build a motor inside the frame of a bike. Yeah. It just impressed me enormously.
It is like... The thing about cycling is... I kind of, at points in my life, have wanted to get into it because I see people who are into it and they're so into it, like are watching it or doing it. I never really want to get into doing it myself, but watching the Tour de France and all that. But the thing I can never get past in my mind, and I know I'll get people tweeting and going, they're not all on dope and all that. And you go, they're all not all doped up to the island. You go, well, it certainly feels that way. Like there's a fair mountain of evidence that this is a sport with an enormous amount of problems, and
that's just not lost in the last 12 months. It's been
for a long time,
for decades.
What's happening, and so I find it hard where I kind of feel like, I'm kind of watching it going, I don't. I feel like I can't support anyone because I'm I don't want to turn around in like. A few years and go, I just wasted all my life supporting, being excited by Lance Armstrong.
Now is that you just assume they're on drugs until proven otherwise, not the other way around.
Well, the ones that aren't, the ones I assume, the ones you could barrack for safely, the ones that may be coming last.
Yeah, the ones who are no good aren't on drugs.
You go,
here's the blokes up the front, you go, you've got to be geared up.
So... In this, at the moment, well, the one thing I'd say, though, it seems a lot of people stay up and watch the Tour de France and say they love it and to be able to tell you at work the next day, that they're tired because they stayed up watching the Tour de France. Like they're a hero. Like you made them stay up.
Yeah. Or they act like they know so much about it. They go, Froome's going well, but don't know how we'll go on the climbing. The climbing leg.
But there's a lot of
gee,
it's been a tough month staying up all night.
Go to bed then.
Go to bed. Like you're the one doing it, not me. Don't tell me about it.
Yeah, I don't care. Yeah.
I'm not your parent. Go to bed. So after the 14th stage, there has been a lot of...
How many stages are there? It does seem to go on forever
there's a heap
too.
more to come.
That's the other annoying thing about it.
Chris Froome, who is a 4-time winner, he's the defending Tour champion. He races for Sky race team. There seems to be a lot that happened in 2015 where he was... in 2015, he was... he's British. He was not only spat on, but had urine thrown at him by the crowd, and his teammates were abused and some of them punched.
There you go.
So... You're talking about...
We're complaining about the footy. A blue at the footy.
I know. It's nothing like they must have A-League fans watching the Tour de France too. So that ended. Now, this year, that's all happened again.
Yeah.
So there was a liquid substance, unidentified liquid substance. You never want to hear the term unidentified liquid substance.
Especially when it's been thrown at you. Yeah.
So it was thrown at Froome again. It didn't hit him, I don't think, but they asked one of the other riders if they saw it. He said, I don't actually call it, but I'm not surprised. We've had a bit of that. It's always been water from what I've seen, but I wouldn't know what it was.
Right.
So the British Sky team, they continue to have a great number of reported incidents, so including flares lit and one thrown at them at one point. They're not talking about it because they don't want to sort of... it finishes on Sunday, I should add.
Okay.
They don't want it to continue on. Now, a lot of it was because before the tour began on July 7th, Froome was cleared by WADA of an adverse analytical finding for his excessive...
WADA doesn't clear anyone, does it?
Excessive reading of salbutamol in a 2017 race in Spain.
Right.
And then also his fellow British...
your oranges from Carlos.
Ever since fellow Briton Bradley Wiggins won the 2012 Tour with Sky, the team has been constantly subjected to suspicion over its practice in preparing for and developing riders and has stumbled over its explanation. So once again, the French public think here's a bunch of foreigners cheating. And you have to say they were right about.
Yeah.
Because I remember these sort of stories about Lance Armstrong.
And Bradley Wiggins, is that not the most British name you've ever heard? Bradley Wiggins. I'll tell you one thing I did see of the Tour de France, I think it was a YouTube clip somebody put on, where you see the riders, the peloton all coming round this corner, and they've got like an embankment next to them, and went over the top came a bloke on a dragster. He jumped the whole peloton on his dragster and went down the other side like a mountain bike rider. And I was thinking, that's maybe all it needs is a few more tricks. Clowns on bikes. That's what we need.
It is amazingly dangerous the way the crowd gets up in their grill and all that sort of stuff.
Especially if they're flinging, bags of urine at the competitors.
You should never do that.
No, that's not called for.
Surely we can avoid that.
That's why we need to send the poo jogger. Maybe he could do the Tour de France next year.
You think that's his gear? So I'm going to be watching, fascinated to see what happens with the Sky Racing team now. But once again, it's a Tour de France marred by doping accusations.
And doping.
And you rarely have a doping accusation that doesn't come true in cycling.
Exactly.
Now, that Melbourne Rebels fight we talked about where two teammates fought last week.
I noticed you've uncovered... There's a bit more to it than we just thought.
Well, it had just happened, and they just said, that two teammates had blued on, and we talked about it. And we were kind of amazed by it.
A blue between teammates at a training camp or a training. It's not unheard of in any football
so it sounded like this had been.
Plenty of times.
They wrote it up when we read the first one, like bit of fisticuffs between two teammates.
Yeah.
They're both leaving the Rebels now, or were already.
Yeah.
Right, one's going back to Japan. I think the other one's going to France. Yeah. So we already knew. Maffey and his older brother. This is all alleged at the moment because it's going to be before the court. So Tamani, Lopeti Tamani, has talked about the fight with his teammate Amanaki Maffei, who. He said that they were at Maffei's home and Tamani made apparently a disparaging comment about one of the family members, female family members present, right?
So he's at his teammate's house. So you think up until this point...
They were drinking and boozing and very drunk and all that.
Rugby players.
So he said something about, like, apparently disparaging about a female thing. So they started to... Him and Maffey and his brother started assaulting Tamani, and then they chased him to a nearby park. Then they forced him into a car, and he was driven around South Dunedin as they continued to belt him. He said
car rally in Dunedin's not that appealing at the best of times.
Yeah, he he was repeatedly being punched in the face. He said, "Mate, why are you doing this to me? I thought you were my teammate. I know your family. Are you punching me because you're angry because I said something offensive to your family?" He was just punching me, and he said, "Because I'm telling you now, I'm the man. I'm the man. I thought he was going to kill me. I thought I was going to die." So it was that serious.
Yeah, it's a fair touch-up, isn't it?
He said after the initial attack, Maffey called his brother and called him to come along. So Tamani called his brother after the initial attack to tell him. So his brother, Tamani, had to listen while his brother got belted up in the car until the phone was cut off. He managed to escape the pair when they pulled up at a red light, and he managed to get out and run 200 metres down the road before hiding in nearby bushes. So this is like this is sort of like assault several times, kidnapping. Like
the two brothers just showed their inexperience as kidnappers there by allowing him to escape at a red light.
You wouldn't have made that mistake.
No.
It worries me. I'm not sure if you're joking.
You've got to make sure that the door locks are pulled out.
You know, central locking's on, do you? You know what? It's funny because sometimes you think if someone accused you of something, you'd like other people to go, there's no way that guy did. Like, you know, he's a good bloke. But when you mention you kidnapping someone, I go, this could be true.
Well, I'm just saying, you're going to do it. Do it properly.
Yeah, that's right. There's no respect for the craft of kidnapping anymore. You know, there's no respect. It might be not to everyone's taste, but it's still a craft. So that's
the least they could have done was cut his ear off and posted it back to the rebels.
I tell you what, we talked about a story escalating at the start. That's a story that's escalated because that was meant to be like a couple of fisticuffs between teammates. That is not a couple. So he's still in jail. I think it looks like they're saying he's facing 5 years or something.
Oh, so and they both left the rebels.
Although 5 years in
the next team meeting would have been interesting.
They were both leaving anyway, so it's not because of this. The rebels must be thrilled that they're both leaving now. Oh, yeah. The other thing is 5 years in a New Zealand prison. Is that like? Might be quite nice. Is it Hobbit themed?
Was it in Dunedin? There you go. Only ever an hour from the ski fields.
One of the funny things that came out this weekend is David Warner has vowed that said he's incredibly confident that he'll come back and play Test cricket for Australia. It was after he was playing in the Darwin Strike League over the weekend. To your point, this ban is like...
Yeah, I mean...
They can play a lot of things, it seems.
They can play a lot of cricket in a lot of places while they're banned.
Yeah. That said, they have lost out on the IPL and they've lost about $4 to $5 million each, Smith and Warner, from endorsements.
I reckon the Strike League in Darwin's probably not the highest paid,
the most lucrative thing. Although Cam Bancroft is playing there too, so they've to each other. They said when his suspension opened, he'll return to the Australian Test team. He said 100%. If they select me, I'll be putting my hand up as much as I can. This Strike League is just a little stepping stone to continue my progress to enable myself to keep scoring as many runs as I can for every single team I play for in the next 8 months. The next 8 months, I can reflect on what's happened and move forward to be a better person, cricketer, and a better leader.
Oh, good luck with that, Dave.
Now, the thing I don't get about this that annoys me is Warner was found to have not only been the mastermind, and I say that in inverted commas, he was found to have tried to lie when confronted by Cricket Australia as part of the investigation. Smith and Bancroft owned up to everything they knew and had done, and it all correlated. Warner didn't, only under pressure, and finally once they knew everything from everyone else, they were like, mate, we know.
Gotcha.
So he then doesn't do any media until he comes out and does that Roxy Jenko or whatever her name is, the PR, from Sydney, she sets him up to do a press conference.
Yeah.
He then does this press conference where he's all teary for the first half, but then when he actually gets asked questions like, have you ever been involved in ball tampering before? Who bought the sandpaper?
Yeah.
Or who procured it? Who got it?
The logical questions.
How did you know how to teach Bancroft to use the sandpaper if you've never done it before? Who else in the team knew? All these questions that came, right?
Yeah.
He just said, today I'm here to accept and admit responsibility for my actions and to move forward kind of thing. Yeah. He then claimed there was some investigation going on that prohibited him from commenting and tweeted later about that. My point is, okay, even if we're all dead keen to forgive these blokes and we all look at them with varying degrees of culpability, Warner being the most, probably Smith but seem to not step in and then try to cut and protect Bancroft. If we all, to me, Warner, if he's got any chance for Cricket Australia to even think about bringing him back in, and this is where Cricket Australia have been incredibly defensive as well. Peaver, as chair, has not said that he's not releasing any more detail into the investigation into this. Right? There are about 10 questions, significant questions, that are still unanswered.
And never will be.
Well, it seems to never will be, unless how they can let Warner back when to the fans they won't even... And this is why it matters. Cricket Australia are a tax-exempt organisation because they're seen as a community organisation. Yeah. So if they're not going to come clean with the community and the fans that support them and make all their big pay packets available, means if we didn't watch it, there'd be no big sponsorships, there'd be no big TV rights, there'd be none of this stuff, right? So when they kind of act like the fans are all, well, you're not giving us all the money, the TV stations are, well, they're only giving you that money because of us.
Because we watch it, yeah.
So... you owe it to us, and you're also not getting taxed on any of that stuff. So they owe us a better explanation than we've been given. They've refused.
Imagine that will ever happen.
So how can Warner come back when we don't have clarity of what the real level of involvement in all this? Jim Maxwell from ABC said that and he said this publicly, that he's been told they've tried this little sandpapering trick 3 times.
Yeah.
Not just on this test, 3 times before. So, where are we getting answers to that? And Cricket Australia just gone, Peaver came out, the chairman just went, we're not giving you any more info. He said that, he just goes, no more info. He didn't deny it or say, he said, we've released as much as we're interested, we're not going to. And you look at it and go, that is just a disgrace.
It is.
The way they have handled this after the incident is almost worse than the incident itself.
As we said, I remember saying at the time, we used that old cliche, I don't know where it came from, but it was, often the cover-up is worse than the crime. And while I'm not saying that this is a massive cover-up necessarily, as you said, the way they've handled it and the fact that they're still hiding information and won't release it, is stupider than rubbing a cricket ball with a piece of sandpaper.
Yeah, they also restructured the organisation so the head of integrity who ran the investigation into it has been restructured out of the organisation.
See, that's just the sort of...
That got reported, but it was very small.
Thing that
how do you get rid of your head of integrity, months after you've gone through one of the biggest scandals in cricket?
Maybe he was in danger of showing some integrity.
This organisation, they're a serious joke, Cricket Australia, at the moment.
And especially so, if Warner comes back, 12 months, which would take him to, what, January, February next year? Yeah. Then there'll be, because it's not just cricket in the Australian summer anymore, then there'll be test series here, there and everywhere.
Yeah.
If they suddenly pick him back for the Australian test team, and they've said he won't be ever in a position of authority again.
Well, he should have never been in a position. That's the other big untold thing about this. How does Cricket Australia not take responsibility, Sutherland and Peaver and the board and all that, for appointing David Warner to the vice captaincy in the first place?
I know what they'll do. They'll bring him back to the test team early next year and they go, no, that's all right. He served his time. And, hey, he's not vice captain anymore. So don't worry about it.
I know. we'll be rubbish. So everyone will be kind of clamouring for Smith and Bancroft and that to all come back because we'll be like, we want to make a point, but we also don't want to lose to England and these guys. So it's just amazing. But it's funny how just confident he is. I mean, I don't want to see Warner back ever, at least until he actually answers these questions, because I do not believe in the slightest the version of events that we've been given. No. I'm not saying Cricket Australia are lying because they haven't said enough. They just refuse to respond. They refuse to answer the question, is this a one-off? They just don't release any information. They don't let the players answer the question.
I mean, in what forum could Dave Warner come back and answer all these questions?
Well, he did a press conference and he got interviewed on the weekend.
Maybe goes on the project. That'll sort it out.
Go on Andrew Denton's interview. Listeners' questions. Max McCarthy wrote in, should Shannon Hearn, people's mostly in this incident from West Coast Eagles, be charged with A, intentionally standing there, B, recklessly standing there, or C, incidentally standing there? That I've got to say.
B, I mean, Hearn, it's sort of lunchtime on the Monday now, and the tribunal, Michael Christian hasn't probably released all his statements from yesterday. But surely Shannon Hearn's not going to get pinged for that, is he?
I thought he did everything he could to pull up. And I think it's a contact sport. The other guy was running at him. Like, you could argue that maybe a few seconds earlier he should have recognised a little earlier. But, you know, we'd be being really harsh there because it's easy for us to say when watching it and with hindsight and on TV. Like, I think Hearn could have really hurt him, and because Hearn took the action he did, which was to pull up and stop, you know, he limited the damage that he did. I thought he showed genuine intent not to hurt the guy.
He should not be pinged for that. I mean, it's a shame that Honeychurch got knocked out, but I would say if anybody was at fault in that collision, it was Honeychurch. He mucked it up. He led with his head, didn't turn his body to the side. Sorry, mate, bad luck.
David Moyes wrote in, how many weeks for Pendlebury for high contact on the pigeon?
It's Pendlebury.
What did I say?
Yeah, no. I said it was Pendlebury who did it. So
you'll get off.
Yeah, he'll get off.
It was amazing watching that.
The pigeon will be euthanized.
The pigeon was okay afterward, but if people didn't see it, Pendlebury was running full pelt, bounced the ball, took a bounce, it hit a pigeon, and still Pendlebury managed to regather and continue on.
See,
pigeon flew off.
He makes time stand still.
It was actually pretty amazing footage. Tim Byrne wrote in, how's it possible for Carlton to actually manage to live down to their reputation?
They are no good, Carlton, are they?
They remind me of when Melbourne were about 5 to, you know.
Yeah, that. You see, I mean, the last 3 or 4 weeks, Carlton, they end up, they're 10 goals down at half time every week. And then they seem to almost break even in the second half, but the damage is done. They are just not playing AFL
but they've got a lot of injuries, and then they've barely got anyone they're all like, they're very young. Yeah. They're, you know, remember when Melbourne had like no senior leaders whatsoever when they traded them all, you know, and they were just, suddenly they just fell apart. Carlton are kind of in that zone at the moment. Boring Dracula wrote in, how many submarines should Elon Musk send to get Carlton out of the AFL?
well, Carlton, we should point out to Boring Dracula, Carlton haven't officially asked for a submarine. So
a priority submarine. Grant wrote in, if Blues players were all on performance-based contracts, would they actually owe the club money? I tell you what, you watch Cripps play and you're like, that's a guy that's just the only one that he's single-handed. I mean, imagine him in a good team.
Oh, you take Cripps in a heartbeat, and you think, I think he's only contracted till the end of 2019. I think they're trying to sign him up in the minute, but the deal hasn't been done. And surely if Cripps has got any brains, he'll go, let's just wait and see how we go next year, boys. You know, if there's no improvement, why would you stay there?
Well, the way that they're playing, his worth to Carlton only goes up and up.
Yeah.
And to everyone else too. So why would he rush in? Why wouldn't he leave his options open?
Oh, exactly.
Even if he fully intends to one day re-sign for Carlton.
Yeah, they'll have to pay him twice as much this time next year if they're going as bad as they are now.
Yeah, because he literally has them over a barrel because they just, like, if he leaves, like that that club, what are they, you know, so...
He's a fantastic player.
Blake Reynolds wrote in, did Toby Nankervis do the best ever don't argue on roaming Brian? Did you see this?
Yeah, it was... Look, it wasn't literally a don't argue in that the fist went into roaming Brian's chest.
Yeah.
But it was a fresh air as good as you'd say.
BT approaches him, and you can sort of tell from what happened that Nankervis saw BT was coming, but had his back to him, but sort of could sense. So because he was interviewing, I think, Cotcham before him. So he starts to walk off. BT sort of grabs him gently, just to sort of say, "Hey, mate, let's do an interview." Nankervis looks at him with just complete and utter disdain, and then
keeps walking,
and then just keeps walking.
Oh,
it was just brilliant. Now the funny thing is, I retweeted a GIF of it.
Yeah.
And the people who liked it, let's just say there were a lot of AFL players who liked that tweet. And I know from talking to a lot, not saying Richmond players, just that I've talked to at least 10 different AFL players who hate that segment more than life itself, and they hate BT.
Yeah.
It is a terrible segment. I don't get why anyone thinks it's... And you know what really bugs me about it? Is it's so rude to the other media.
Yeah.
Because... someone from radio will be interviewing player, whoever, and BT will just wander up and start sticking the mic in and talking, and you're like, mate, if they did that to you, you'd be furious.
Oh,
like if Channel 7, the arrogance of Channel 7, like, well, because we're TV and the official we're bigger than the radio, we're bigger than the print press. It's like, you're not. It's just not fair. Like, it's so discourteous to the other.
It is. And as I say, it's the arrogance. I mean, it's one of those ones. At a production meeting at the beginning of the season, somebody might have come up with the idea and go, yeah, it's an interesting idea, we'll try that. By week 2, you would have said, well, this doesn't work, we'll ditch it. But they just keep doing it because... But if Channel 7, if they think something's good, they think it's good. They don't care about the public reaction. It's like the mega wall. Yeah. Like, it's just... You're stuck with it forever. BT will never be told that it's not good. He just think because he's involved, it's brilliant.
Well, they just go, his device at BT. People love him or hate him. That creates conversation. Yeah. And you're like, oh... You know, no wonder the ratings are terrible. Last week we were talking about Tasmanian teams, the Hurricanes.
Yeah. And
then they were also talking about a new basketball team could be called the Northern Huskies. Yeah. And I was saying last week that, you know, neither Huskies or Hurricanes exist in Tasmania. So they seem to name sports teams after things that don't exist. So JJ King wrote, if Tasmanian teams are named after things they don't have, will the NBL team be called the Tasmanian AFL team?
I think I'm a handball on a T-shirt your way, JJ.
Danny That's C wrote in, have the Kangaroos opened their war chest for Usain Bolt yet?
Now, what happened to that? The Usain Bolt?
It's still in
Melbourne Victory next year?
No, it's... Central Coast Mariners. There's a talk of him getting a trial with Central Coast Mariners, and he hasn't signed on the dotted line yet.
Oh, as if
it's a 6-week trial.
A 6-week trial.
So
nah, it's not going to happen.
But other teams have come out now overseas in Turkey and the US and offered him contracts too. Yeah. So
North Melbourne they've just narrowly missed out on LeBron James. So
that's right. You know. There's that war chest must be the biggest thing in history.
Yeah. And it keeps getting bigger because nobody's covered it yet. But they reckon they're coming after Angus Brayshaw next.
Yeah.
Keep your dirty hands off.
Brayshaw's been terrific in the last month or 2 months, really. Yeah. Barry McKenzie wrote in, was it a mistake to use Wingdings as the font for my resume?
I think it probably was, Baz. Unless you were trying to get a job at the circus.
Or Channel 7.
Yeah, or Channel 7.
I got to say, I think...
Roaming Barry.
I think Barry... It wouldn't have mattered one way or the other.
Wingdings.
You're probably in trouble no matter what. Did you have a TV? A TV. That'd be good. A T-shirt you wanted to give out.
Oh, yeah, I reckon to JJ.
JJ.
Well
done,
Tassie
JJ.
Teams. That's a very clever question.
There was actually very good questions this week, so that was a tough field to win. Well, thanks for everyone listening. We will be back later on.